Hello and welcome everyone. This is Doris and I am back with week 52 of Margarete Miller's Collage Challenge. Can you believe it? We have made it through the entire year. Well, before I begin with the last challenge, I just kind of want to show what I have done with the front of my journal that I have been using throughout the year. I went ahead and did a little embellishing with a ribbon closure, some book corners because this poor book has definitely been through a lot in the last year. And I even made a bookmark out of the spine of this Reader's Digest book, and this is from 1952. And then for the collage, I just used a little bit of coffee dyed ledger paper, and I did a favorite thing I really like to do is count and cross stitch. Hadn't done that in quite a while, so I went ahead and just made my title right there, and then just added a little bit more lace. And of course, my journal would not be complete without one of my pattern ladies, one of my favorite pieces to use throughout the collages this year. So let's get started and take a look at that last week collage and the prompts for the collage. All right. So first we had a definition for that. Why not use Auld Lang Syne, right? So I did find that on the internet, and because I did not have my own version, and I did do a little research on that song, and it actually was originally a Scottish poem written by Robert Burns back in 1788, and then in 1799 it was set to a traditional tune. And the word Auld Lang Syne actually means old long since. And that reference for this is from the Wikipedia. All right, so then a postage stamp. Postage stamp I put up here on top of my house. There was a chimney on here that I had cut off, so the stamp is, you can barely make it out there, but it is a snowman with a corncob pipe. Then we had something you're thankful for. Well, my home, of course. And the house image you see around here came from a gift bag. Then next is a pair of something. For that, I'm using these ornaments. And they were part of an advertisement in a magazine. And so they're gold and silver. So I thought that would be perfect for the type of theme I'm going with here. Then a piece of coloring book page. That's probably a little bit harder to figure out. These pieces here, there's 3 of them. Here is on her hat, and then one up here. And they actually came from the Strawberry Shortcake coloring book that I have. So right here you can see what they originally looked like. And then I just used some gold embossing powder on them and added them onto my page. Then the bonus item was a photograph. And that photograph right here came from an old knitting catalog that I've been using throughout this year. And then I just added a little extra embellishing with some washi tape. And then the words here are from a greeting card. And then that gold piece back here, I embossed that, and that was from another greeting card. Show that to you a little closer there. All right, so that's my collage for week 52. Okay, so now I'm going to do a little flip through all 52 collages that I have done throughout the year. And as I do that, I will just give you a little insight into some things that I've learned and just things about my style as we go along real quick. So when I first started this collage challenge, I had given myself 3 goals. First was to finish the challenge, which I did. Second was to not use any digitals, and that I did not do, other than I did have to do a couple of, say, Google image searches for a couple things. Otherwise, that was it. And the third goal I had set myself was no peeking at anyone else's work until I was ready to put my videos together. In other words, until I was all done with that week's lesson. Well, there were a time or two when I would be stuck. And I'll be honest, I did check out other work. And sometimes it helped me, and sometimes that just made it even more tough for me. In that case, I just had to figure out what would work, I guess, for me. And some lessons I have learned along the way. Definitely, first of all, everyone has their own style. Some crafters chose to fill up an entire page with the collage. Some used 2 pages. Some used extras that weren't part of the prompts. And then there were some that had a very minimalist type of idea. And nothing wrong with any of those. And the prompts were definitely, oh my goodness, the prompts were definitely a matter of interpretation. I mean, I'm a very literal person. Say, for example, if it was sewing, you know, that's one of those things you could take and go in a lot of different directions. It could be maybe somebody used stitches, actual stitches. Maybe someone had a picture of a sewing machine. Maybe someone used a shirt. So again, the prompts were, you know, a matter of personal interpretation. Another thing that I had to do was I would get stuck. And so I would brainstorm for ideas. I had a notebook that I would write down what all the prompts were. And as I thought of something, I would go and write it down. Sometimes it would help me, and sometimes it didn't. I've used Google occasionally. The interesting thing was I would come up with ideas, say, for a prompt, and I would have in my mind what the collage might look like. And it almost never, I would say 98% of the time, the idea I had in the beginning of the collage was never what it ended up being. So you just never know. Now, my top 3 favorite resources in doing the collages, definitely sewing patterns. That was my absolute favorite resource to use. I love them, and there's so many ways you can use them, and so many parts of them that you can use. The pattern, the outside of the pattern, the inside of the pattern, things like that. Another favorite item I liked using for collage were books that I had. Whether it was flower books, I have an architecture book. One of my favorites was a church cookbook. And another item I really loved using in my collage were, believe it or not, greeting cards. I had a lot of greeting cards. They're so prevalent at the thrift stores. You can just get stacks and stacks of them. So those were really my top 3 favorite types of things to use. Now we're just kind of flipping through. And in most cases, like this charity ball ticket, this is original. That is not a copy. Down here, a little milk ticket. That's not a copy either. It's so fun to go back and look and see different things I've done. And also I have had a lot of fun with journaling and how I was going to put that prompt sheet in. And you can see after about the first 2 weeks, I would collage on one side, and then I left myself room to journal on the other side. I'm really glad I continued that throughout the year. Picture of my mom's high school photo there. Another thing you'll notice is in between the middle of the signatures and at the beginning of and the ending of each signature, I chose to keep it blank. That was just kind of a way to let my eyes rest, I suppose. just something that I wanted to do. Here I made a little corner tuck for the prompt. And I definitely had collages that were my favorites, and I definitely had ones that I was not as satisfied with. But it's all a matter of learning and using what you have, right? This here was a paper bag. Here we have a Panera bag. So many different things you can use. Song lyric, song title. Here I used Rhinestone Cowboy. And sometimes Margarete would just offer one prompt a week. In this case, she did just that, and it was name your favorite song, artist, or style of music. And definitely Journey, my favorite band. And I put a little heart here by my favorite song. And this was one of the times when I did have to look up an image to print off of Google. But again, this is my own personal journal / collage books, and this is not something that will be sold. I used some stamping, was another thing I used quite a bit of, my own stamps. And another lace as well. I love using lace throughout the journal. Sometimes some of these pieces were actually glued in after the fact. You can tell this is a 4th of July time frame. I'll try to go a little bit faster here. Going to the zoo. And I added in even the zoo brochure there and a ticket. This was a different one too. It was a single prompt, and it was to come up with a secret code. Used a flower from my yard for this prompt. And this one here was my birthday. This one was cool. This one we had to use a security envelope pattern, so I had a really cool envelope. I just turned right side out, an industrial look. And this wasn't the end of the signature, but I just decided that I really love the 2 pages to be just left alone. And I had counted out my pages, so I knew that I had room to be able to do that. Now we're starting that last signature. An original recipe I found in a cookbook. I love the architecture picture. It really reminded me of the Brady Bunch. A couple of my pattern ladies you can see used here. Here I took all of the scraps and just kind of glued them together like a top tuck, and here's the prompts on a tag that I created. I believe this was another single prompt, and it had to do with your favorite beverage, and this is actual Baker's Cocoa book from 1931. This is the actual end paper in the book, and some real images from the book too. This was my Thanksgiving spread. And if you were to go back and look at the video, you'd notice that this looks different. That's because I didn't like it at all. And so I had ripped it off and tried to redo it. And the one thing I left out was the mushroom. It just couldn't get it to work with this collage, so I kept it out. But the rest is in there. Another one of my favorite pattern ladies there in red. Christmas one. I love this one. We had to do, one of the prompts was something on a string. So I had the lady holding a Christmas ornament. So I really like how that turned out. She's holding a little map there, which that was just a little, like a little Project Life card I just folded up. And they had a picture of a map on it. And this is all a greeting card, and this is a greeting card here. And I made my little prompt sheet look like a little gift. And then we're back to my last one. So that concludes my collage work for 2022. I want to thank Margarete Miller for this collage challenge. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about my style and how not to be afraid to try something different. And I learned I didn't need to buy anything. I didn't buy a single thing. All I needed to do was just keep digging through what I already had. So I encourage any of you that haven't tried this collage challenge to give it a try. Margarete is continuing this challenge again in 2023, and all of that information will be below the video. Want to wish all of you a happy new year, and I hope that 2023 will be a year filled with crafting, learning, and sharing for all of you. Bye for now.